Today I'm coming to you smack bang in the middle of a town in Krakow. It's the old original town established hundreds of years ago. And I'm standing in front of Zamek Krlewski, which translates into the King's Palace. Now, the reason why I'm standing here and looking and appreciating this, because this very building was flattened in the Second World War, pretty much to its non-existence. It was pretty much entirely annihilated. So I'm about to go for a walk in here, and the fascinating thing about this building, it's in the shape of a pentagon. So reflectively, looking back in the ages of the symbolism within a pentagon and why constructions were actually made as a pentagon is certainly of an interest to me. But one thing that I have been reflecting upon and looking again at my family history and genealogy and looking at some of the impacts to what my culture, my heritage, my direct lineage has been exposed to, which helps me shape me, who I am, and also looks at my current set of values and my passion and purpose as well. And I can now see why I'm doing what I'm doing and where my influences are coming from, because of the atrocities that were inflicted upon Poland. Now, Poland in the Second World War were invaded pretty much from both sides and had a lot of its freedom, a lot of its communication and basic human rights stripped from them. One of the major things that I realized is that there was the German Nazi party regime that was infiltrating from the West, yet there was also the communist regime from Russia, from the East, and each of them had their agendas in invading this land in Poland. And what I've noticed, a lot of it was to strip, not only, it wasn't just for the land, it was to strip communications, knowledge, freedom, and freedom of speech. And that's probably one of the biggest things, and why I realize now, by being immersed here in Poland, why this LoveLife education platform and freedom of speech is so important, and why I'm bringing this forward to the world, because it's almost undoing some of my programming from the past that's not serving. And it's really fascinating, because the more I look into the core purpose to why I'm doing what I'm doing is a complementary opposite to what was essentially taken away from, really was my heritage, and especially from my family. And I've seen in my years of personal development that what I've been working through and shedding, as in what I call the old paradigm from the past, in order to become a better version of myself, and seeing it from its origins and really getting a good grasp of it, has really been what's solidified and grounded a lot within me, and brought a lot more clarity to what I had no idea and didn't even understand was happening at the time. So it's been a very, very humbling experience, and something that I've not really appreciated, how far I feel like I've evolved and how far I feel like I've developed, and how much work I feel I still have to do. But not as in work to get to a destination point, but just, finding greater depths to myself and greater understanding, and having a better relationship with myself and others, and looking at some of my programs that were inherent from my family, but they were also external influences that were put upon them, that transpired through the education and environment that I was exposed to in an environment around home. And being able to now know the choice to be able to decipher is something that I feel so grateful for, really grateful for. And the other interesting thing is traveling with 3 generations. There's myself in the middle, and I've brought my father here to Poland as well, and he's in his 70s, and it was on his love cup list to come back here again, and it's been 41 years for him since he was last in Poland. And for my son as well, to really see where our roots have come, and he's 13, and it's just been beautiful, but it's also been very confrontational and challenging as well, because each of us through different generations have different values. We've been raised at different times, and each that are being presented with one another as we're traveling together has moments, I must admit, of frustration, challenges, yes, definitely, and looking at our beliefs and even communication methods. And something that I realize about I guess the Polish culture, and from my observations, is purely from my observations, that the type of communication from the generations that of my father, be it the baby boomers, is restricted, very restricted. And even though an opportunity or space can be provided for clear, concise communication to occur, it's very challenging to be able to define very succinctly what it is that's genuinely wanted by the individual. And I've noticed that within conditioning within my father, but I've also noticed it within the culture here in Poland. So what's been presenting is it's easy to decide, and this is probably where I'm stemming this conversation about, and summarizing it, is it's very easy to know what you don't want, and very easy to articulate it. And I'm noticing this as a common theme that's happened over the past few days in communications, not only with family, but also, like, aka my father, based on the programming he's been exposed to, but also even in Poland as well. So, but when it comes down to being very clear and succinct about what specifically one does want, it's extremely challenging, because the choice was never available. And now the choice is available, because my grandparents fled Poland. One side stayed and fought in the war and looked after, one of my grandmothers looked after 40 orphan children who lost their parents throughout the war, and stayed in a safe house to nurse them and be a motherly figure to 40 children that wasn't even her own, and that was prior to her even having my mother. And the other side of my family basically got relocated to Russia and fled, and then pretty much became part of a regime which then was migrated to India, then from India, which is where my father was born, and then from there ended up being placed into Australia, the lucky country of freedom, but back at the time then was unknown, was completely unknown. So so choice wasn't an option, and now being presented with freedom of choice, with uninhibited choice, is still a subconscious programmed element that almost can't compute because it hasn't been inherently learned and provided throughout the years and throughout the culture and environment, be it in parenting or schooling, and in the influence, it just wasn't there. So now being able to have that on offer, one can't make a decision from that point. So that's a very interesting observation and takeaway for me, and it's got me to have a look at things. And I've been doing a fair bit of writing, and I'll be introducing that and integrating that within my book, and as well as the LoveLife formula, and I've already started writing that to incorporate as part of the LoveLife experience seminar series as well. So I really look forward to sharing much more with you about this topic. And if you've got anything that you want to share in relation to challenges of freedom of communication and expression and open transparency, and also being able to articulate confrontational content that you're finding difficult to verbalize and share and get across transparently, it could be worthwhile having a look at what was available to you and your environment, and hence why there's a lot of resistance and challenges to be able to openly and authentically communicate your truth in order to find your freedom.